Now, there's a chance the Texans have not one, but two steals from this NFL draft. How could those players end up being steals in 2025? I'll tell you in this video presented by The Perfect Jean. My jeans are The Perfect Jean, the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Check them out. The link in the description down below. Get 15% off and free shipping when you check out my friends at The Perfect Jeans. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Knoll are the players I'm talking about. Sorry, Ariante Ursary. We're talking about the pass catchers here. And Higgins and Knoll, obviously teammates at Iowa State, now teammates again for the Houston Texans after they selected them at the top of the second round and in the middle of the third round. And could the Texans have two steals on their hand? Last year, Kamari Lassiter ended up being a huge steal for the Houston Texans. But how do you determine exactly what a steal is in a draft pick? Well, I'm glad you asked because I have the anatomy of a steal. First of all, you've got to play. You got to have playing time. You've got to go out there and outperform the position. That has double meaning. I'll tell you in a minute. And you have to create a level of draft envy as well. So let's take a look at Higgins' situation, Knoll's situation. Though similar, they are different. Let's see if they can each check the boxes to end up as a steal. Let's talk about playing time. First of all, it feels like there's an easier path to playing time for Jaden Higgins. He is the top draft pick for the Houston Texans. He's ready to play on the outside right away. The Texans have a need at outside wide receiver with Christian Kirk on the inside and Nico Collins opposite that other outside spot. So it would make sense that Jaden Higgins is getting that opportunity when the season finally arrives after training camp. So the path to playing time for him, it is certainly there. And, well, the durability concerns, not really any for him. He played all his games at Iowa State, so you don't have to worry about health. He's got an opportunity and a roadmap to playing time, and Higgins can get on the field and check that first box. It's a little bit more complicated when you talk about Jalen Knoll's path to playing time. Now, obviously, he could play outside too. He played inside and outside for the Cyclones in college, but is he going to play over Higgins a lot? I don't know that I totally see that right away, but he does possess an ability that I don't feel like any other wide receiver on the team possesses, in that he is speedy. He can take the top off of defenses. He can make safeties respect the deep ball. He can maybe loosen up some of those safeties that crept so close on C.J. Stroud in 2024. Knoll has that type of speed and ability to get deep, go out there, and really affect the way defenses play the Texans offense. So he may see some playing time there. Christian Kirk has an injury history, so Jalen Knoll could see some playing time in place of Christian Kirk, either keeping Kirk healthy and extending him throughout the course of the season, or if Kirk just got hurt. Plus, I don't think it's out of the question you could see two slot receivers on the field at the same time, and that would get Knoll some opportunities there. Plus, there's a special teams factor to Jalen Knoll as well, perhaps punt return, maybe even kick return as well. So there are opportunities. It's not as clear as Jaden Higgins, but there's opportunities for Jalen Knoll to get out there on the field, get some playing time. It's not quite a check of the box, but you could certainly see how it could be enough that he could perform. The second part of the anatomy of a steal after playing time is outperform the position. Okay, outperform the position. Now, that has dual meaning. One, where you're drafted, the draft slot that you were drafted, and two, the players that were drafted around you. So let's start with where they were drafted. 34th overall. We saw last year what 34th overall can bring to the table. That was Ladd McConkey. He was one of the best rookie receivers in all of football. He basically carried the receiving game for the Los Angeles Chargers last year. Now, it's a different situation for Jaden Higgins. He's coming in to a wide receiver room that has a very clear, very good established number one in Nico Collins. But as the 34th overall pick, And as a wide receiver, you are expected to have some level of contribution immediately. And I don't think it's crazy to ask for some touchdowns and maybe even some big plays out of Jaden Higgins. I'm not sitting here telling you he's got to be Lad McConkey from last year. McConkey had over 1,000 yards. Excellent in that playoff game against the Houston Texans as well for the Chargers. He didn't have to do that, but you've got to get on the field and you got to play well when you do get on the field as the 34th overall pick. So a little bit more pressure on Higgins, a little bit harder for him to check that box than Noel. As much as you'd love to see Jalen Noel go out there and you just contribute right away and be awesome right away, it's the 79th overall pick. And a lot of times that player is not immediately a super productive wide receiver. It's not immediately a guy that you're sitting there and you're like, okay, they got to go out there, they got to play right away. And I know the Texans have had some good luck in the third round with wide receivers. Remember how good Tank Dell was as a rookie, but you've just got to go out there, get on the field, make a few plays, and start to build over the course of the season to outperform the position from a draft slot standpoint. If you're Jalen Noel, it's a little bit easier for him to check the box and then outperform the position. Who was drafted around you? Let's flip back over to Higgins. I compare him closest to Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden. Now, those are two first rounders, but back half of the first round. And then Luther Burden, who went shortly after Jaden Higgins was drafted. Those are the type of guys that I would look at and compare Jaden Higgins to as part of being a steal. If you outperform those guys, you outperform two first rounders, and you outperform a guy who got drafted right behind you, you're well on your way to being a steal. It's less about the guy behind him and Luther Burden. It's a lot more about the guy in front of him and Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden. But if Higgins has a better year than Matthew Golden, if he has a better year than Emeka Egbuka, heck, if he gets close to Tetaroa McMillan, who was a top 10 pick to the Carolina Panthers, you're starting to feel like Jaden Higgins is having a big-time impact and close to being a steal. The other part of that is Jalen Noel outperforming guys that were drafted in front of him. Woo boy, what a list we have. Let's go through it here. Realistically, in the range here, around where Jalen Noel got picked, guys that could have been in the same conversation as him. Let's go through it. Trey Harris, Jack Besh, Kyle Williams, Isaac Tesla, and Pat Bryant. Now, a few of those guys, crushes of mine in the draft process, but I don't know that I could say for sure they were better than Jalen Noel in this draft process. So you start thinking about Noel versus Harris or Besh or Williams or Tesla or Bryant, you could really see how Noel starts to outperform those guys, how they go out there and maybe they don't produce as much or they don't get on the field or it doesn't look as easy for them. And then Jalen Noel gets on the field when he has those opportunities. He gets some of that playing time. We talked about the roadmap to him getting on the field, and it could really get interesting and intriguing for Jalen Noel outperforming a bunch of those guys in front of him. Trey Harris in a good spot for opportunity. So is Kyle Williams. So are a couple of those other guys. But Jalen Noel, if he gets his opportunity and looks better in those snaps than those guys, that's certainly on his way to outperforming the position. You know who else outperforms? The perfect gene. The genes from the perfect gene outperform everybody else at their position because it's easy to get in position with the perfect gene. They're so damn stretchy. They're so breathable, lightweight, comfortable. What more could you ask for out of a pair of jeans? How about durable? I've put these things to the test a couple of different times, wearing them throughout a day, maybe even getting into some work around the house. You know, these are durable jeans. Just because they're lightweight and comfortable and stretchy doesn't mean they're weak and they're going to tear and they're going to break. Check them out, man. The website's got so many different colors, different styles. I wear the athletic fit, but they got slim cut, boot cut. They even got bigger, more roomier jeans than the ones that I wear in tons of different colors. 15% off, free exchanges. So get a bunch, find out what you like, and free shipping. When you use my link in the description down below, check them out. The perfect gene produces the perfect jeans. You'll love them. You know what else I love? Draft envy and creating draft envy amongst players that were drafted around you. Obviously at the position. We went through that. If the Packers are looking around and they're like, Jaden Higgins was better than Matthew Golden. Dang it. Like if they're looking around, that's great. You want other teams to have draft envy. You want teams that drafted wide receivers to be pissed that you got that guy and their team drafted somebody else, but you also want teams that drafted other positions to be sitting around and saying, my goodness, why did we draft an offensive lineman, a defensive tackle, when Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel are doing what they have been doing, when they're doing what they are for the Houston Texans? I think one of the great examples is the Cleveland Browns drafted a linebacker right before the Texans drafted Jaden Higgins. The Browns could have used Jaden Higgins, okay? So that would be an example of creating some draft envy. You think about some of the players that went before Jalen Noel, not only at wide receiver, but just in the draft, creating that draft envy is a big part of the steal and checking that box. I think one of the best examples of draft envy in the history of the universe is the Houston Texans when they selected Ross Blacklock, and the very damn next pick, Jonathan Taylor, was selected by the Indianapolis Colts. Yuck! Incredible draft envy there because Ross Blacklock, A, wasn't good. B, you didn't need another defensive tackle. You needed a running back. Bill O'Brien, you dummy. You got to create draft envy if you're going to be a steal. So factor again everything that we've talked about. You got to be able to get on the field. You got to be able to outperform the position, both where you're drafted and who got drafted at that position. And you've got to create draft envy. Are we going both these guys as a steal? One of these guys as a steal? Who is it? Well, let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll give you my answer. I feel like Jalen Noel could end up being a steal. If he finds his way on the field enough, I do believe he's going to outperform a lot of those guys that got drafted in front of him, not only at the position, but at other positions. There will be some teams lamenting the fact that they let Jalen Noel slip to the Houston Texans in the middle of the third round. I feel like it's likely he is going to be a steal. It's a little bit tougher for Jaden Higgins. Not impossible, but a little bit tougher for him to qualify as that steal. But Jalen Noel, I'm predicting he's going to be a steal in 2025 for the Houston Texans. Appreciate you watching the video. Don't forget to check out my friends at The Perfect Gene, and hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait till we talk Texans again soon.